And we are back. So, again, hello, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in between and beyond. We're back with part two. So, I did post on my YouTube channel the special we were watching here. Um, so, for anybody who is watching along, it was good. Um, I did not realize that he used the F slur during this special. So for anybody, I do apologize for that. It wasn't directed at the way he put it. Is it's him and his wife, how they talk to each other. They call each other the F slur. It's not a thing. It's not a sexual thing or an insult or anything. They just think it's funny. The funnier thing was the fact that one of his kids tries to impersonate it, but instead of using that word, they call him a ferret, which I thought was that is actually funny. I love so seeing as there's not a whole lot to talk about with the special itself, because it was literally just him talking about his kids for the most part, little by little. Uh, there's art of the special, of course, because he was in Half Baked, and of course he looks like he's always stoned all the time. He just started the special talking about smoking weed and stuff like that, which makes sense. Um, for me, he was talking about how he doesn't like he took being in Half Baked very seriously, and all for but one scene, he was completely sober, and that made me think back to so. For the most part, I work in kitchens. I have a lot of fun working in kitchens. I've done it for a lot of years. I think I'm pretty good at it for the most part. Nobody's perfect, but a number of years ago, I was working at a place, and it, the kitchen manager had fired like half the staff, so the staff that was left was working. I had a paycheck during that period where I worked 109 hours over a period of 2 weeks. So I was tired. And a lot of kitchen workers will smoke pot at work and stuff like that. I don't, because I know I'm pretty well fucking useless when I smoke weed. I do not trust myself around hot things. I do not trust myself around sharp things. So no smoking weed for the kitchen guy. But I'd finished work. I was done. So I went outside, had a few drags on a joint, went back inside, sat down at the bar, ordered a drink. I'm sitting there having a drink. All of a sudden, the GM comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, and goes, "Hey, they need you in the kitchen." And I look at him, I'm like, "No." And he goes, "No, seriously, they need you in the kitchen. Like, they're getting rocked back there." And I'm like, "I'm kind of high right now, and I'm mixing it with alcohol. It's not a great idea if I go back there right now." And he's like, "Well, they need something." So I get up off the bar stool, stagger into the kitchen, and of course, it's just absolute whiteout. For those of you who have never worked in a kitchen, a whiteout essentially refers to as a shit ton of bills all in front of you. Bills are white, all you can see is white, thus the term whiteout. And I look at this and I'm like, oh, good God. And the guy who is essentially supposed to be the supervisor on duty is just completely overwhelmed, and I'm standing there looking at all this going, well, we're fucked. There's no two ways about it. We're screwed. Because the only thing I can technically do is make nachos. I'm stoned mixed with alcohol. I'm not touching a fucking grill. Are you insane? I enjoy having eyebrows, thank you very much. So I'm trying to direct him on how to direct everybody else while I'm standing on the sidelines just shoving nachos into the oven. Because fortunately there was bills that were just nachos, so I could take care of those. We get through it all, Finally, after we finally get everything settled down, the kitchen manager, who lived only a few blocks away, shows up. And he's like, hey guys, what's going on? And I'm like, well, you missed the thing that we've been talking about forever. And he goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, you completely missed a stone ginger working. And he starts laughing and he goes, I missed it? What happened? I tell him, and he starts laughing and he goes, yeah. He's like, I don't think it's good if you smoke weed at work anymore. I'm like, I was off the clock, you asshole. He also was taught. This is absolutely true. So one thing he talked about as well was like, it's very important for a mother who has kids to get their sleep. And this is what he said, because if a mother does not get the appropriate amount of sleep while she's dealing with her children, that's when the devil just pops in and goes, I'll take over from here. That is absolutely true. Don't question it. And I am positive that sleep deprivation in a mother is the number one cause of male death. So, but he was talking about his kids, I had to think about my great niece. She's absolutely fucking adorable. And an incident kind of popped into my head about it too. And she was... So, I have a lot of shirts. I know this is going to shock a lot of you. I'm a fire eater, so I have a lot of shirts that have fire on them. And a couple of those shirts also have skulls on them. One day I'm hanging out with her and I was wearing one of my Flame Skull t-shirts. And she realized that there was skulls on it. And she's like, your shirt scares me. And I'm like, what do you mean, honey? And she goes, well, 'cause it's got a skull on it. That's scary. She's like 4 years old at this time. And she's like, that's scary. And I was like, you want to hear something really scary? You have one inside you right now. She looks at me and she's like, yeah, but I don't see that one. I love that fucking little kid. Kids are great. I do like kids. Kids are fun. I think I've told this story on the live stream, but I feel it's a really good... It shows the innocence of a child. It's a really good story, and it's actually one of the first stories that I wrote about kids in my act. And I don't really tell it very often, so I'll tell it in this live. When my niece and nephew, not my great niece, my niece and nephew, when they were little, we used to play a lot of board games. And my niece's favorite one was the Game of Life. Which I find ironic because she hasn't really lived much of it yet, but, you know, to each their own. So we're sitting there playing the Game of Life, and I'm talking like the old school Game of Life, not the new one, not the digital one where you get a little credit card and all that kind of stuff. No, I'm talking the original one with the little spinner that... and you get the little car with the little pegs in it and stuff like that. That's the Game of Life I'm talking about. And we're playing the Game of Life, and I'm driving my little car around the game board, and you get to the part where you get married. And I'm a guy, so of course I had the little blue peg that's supposed to resemble guys, apparently. Which is always weird, because the pegs don't change shapes, it's just either pink or blue. So I guess if that game ever went back in time... Because pink used to mean boy, because pink is a stronger color than blue. So I guess if that game ever got sent back in time, you'd still be fine. But she sticks another little boy peg in my car, and she goes, haha, you're gay. She's like 6, okay? She's like, haha, you're gay. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever, because I really don't care. And she stops. She looks at me, and I remember the way she looked at me with those big brown eyes. She goes, Uncle Jordy, how do gay people have babies? And my first thought was, how do you know how regular people, like, that sounds bad. How do you know how non-gay people have babies? But that's not what I said. What I said was, that's a very good question. And this is the best part about being an uncle, because you get to say things like this. I look at her and I'm like, that's a very good question, sweetie. But that's a mommy question. Mommy is far more qualified for this one. And that was the end of that, or so I thought, until probably about a couple months later, we started playing the game of life again, and we get to the part where I get married, and I'm expecting to get another little boy piece in my car. And she immediately just snaps at me and goes, I know how gay people have babies. I'm like, this is going to be interesting. All right, honey, why don't you tell me how gay people have babies? And she goes, oh, they adopt? Your mom really wasn't in the mood to explain anything medical to you, was she? When you asked her that particular question. And that is fair. And to me, right there is the solution to having so many kids that are stuck in the foster system and stuff like that. Is right there. Just let gay people adopt them. That's not going to take care of the entire problem, but it's going to reduce it some, and sometimes that's all we need is a little bit of reduction. Yeah. Anyway, that all being said, our comedian for next month is the one and only Dana Carvey. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Dana Carvey, most people are familiar with him playing Garth from the Wayne's World movies. Of course, he's also a Saturday Night Live alumni. And in my opinion, one of the best ones that was ever on Saturday Night Live. Just the fact he's an impersonator first and foremost, and I've seen his comedy specials before. I'm looking forward to rewatching it. But oh my God, if there's ever anybody who can play pretty much any character ever, it's frickin' Dana Carvey, because he is just too good at everything. Like, he does like such a... And he breaks down how he does impressions too. In the last comedy special I saw of his, he's doing Barack Obama, and he actually breaks down how you have to kind of change your speech pattern to match Barack Obama's speech pattern. And it's actually really fucking cool. And apparently there was a little bit, and I'll probably get into this a little bit more, but apparently there was a little bit of a wedge between him and Michael Myers, because the character Dr. Evil that he played in the Austin Powers movie is essentially a ripoff of a character that Dana Carvey used to do, which was an impersonation of somebody who also, I think he was a producer or something, that worked on Saturday Night Live while they were on Saturday Night Live. And so Dana Carvey was understandably upset about that. I don't think Mike Myers has ever said anything about that, but it seems like Dana Carvey's kind of made peace with it and stuff like that. How he is not more successful at this point, I mean, he has been in some pretty gnarly bombs. And sometimes that's all it takes for a star to fall, unfortunately. But you can't blame him for it all because he damn well did his fucking best in all of the movies. The one that immediately comes to mind, and some of you guys may have seen it, is The Master of Disguise. If you've seen The Master of Disguise, which is not a good movie, it has some good parts in it. And it's got some very meme-worthy parts in it. But it's not a good movie. But he tried. He really tried. And it gave him some freedom instead of just being an impersonator to kind of craft some of his own characters, which is a beautiful thing when somebody who is so gifted at doing impressions of different people, giving them carte blanche to actually design their own characters, make their own characters, have their own fun with it. It is kind of a beautiful thing to just let them be creative. And of course, that's how we got characters like the Church Lady and Garth from Wayne World and, Hans and Franz from Saturday Night Live as well. And there's still references to Hans and Franz from Saturday Night Live. To this day, I'll still see occasionally a YouTuber or something like that. Granted, they're older YouTubers, but still YouTubers doing the whole "we're here to pump you up," and of course it was a blatant ripoff of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's still kind of relevant. I mean, he's no longer the governor, but he still pops in once in a while and talks about how hatred is bad and pollution is bad and stuff like that. And you know what? As much as, I don't like some of the things that Arnold has done throughout the years, and I'm not just talking about the movies. If you guys know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. But I can get behind those things that he's saying. Hatred is bad. There's no need to hate anybody. I don't get, I actually got into a conversation not too long ago, because a friend of mine was doing some gaming, and it was a battleship simulator thingy, and he kind of made the offhanded comment of he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fight the Japanese and make them pay for Pearl Harbor, and I was just like, dude, why? That is a war that is so far in our fucking rearview mirror. We don't need to make references like that anymore. We don't need to harbor a grudge against anybody for that kind of shit anymore. Almost everybody from that time frame is no longer with us. And the few that are, it's not like they have political power or anything. I mean, there's older people living in retirement homes and being taken care of by their families. Yeah, maybe they taught, their kids some stuff that may have been passed down, but very little of that still exists. There's no need. Sorry, it just kind of stuck in my craw about that, and I apologize for kind of going on to a bit of a rant. And I'm just going to mute my microphone because I got to blow my nose real bad. You can probably hear how stuffed up I am. There we go. Much better. Whew, clearing the head. But yeah, the simple fact of the matter is that there is one thing we can learn from World War II that is still very relevant today. And that is very simply that hatred and bigotry is just things that just can't win a war. You can't win a war when those are the things that you're fighting for. Because we look at the history books. Germany actually was getting close to world domination, but they didn't. And you can say whatever you want to say about the reason as to why, but nobody who's ever fought on the side of hatred and bigotry has won. Because that kind of shit clouds your judgment. Plain and simply. But I feel that's a good enough point Dana Carvey, yay! Garth for Wade's World. I think that's a good enough point to kind of end our live stream. So thank you all so very much for joining us today. If you're new here, by all means, drop a like, drop a comment, and drop a subscribe to the channel. We do this every month until September, and then as of September, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, to change this to weekly.
I regret nothing.
Ooh, and that was a loud one. Sorry, that was a notification on my phone. But yes, as of September, hopefully we'll be doing this every Thursday. But until then, it's the first Thursday of each month. We do our Let's Laugh. So join us where we talk about some of the best comedians in the world. We are sitting at number 90 for Mr. Dana Carvey for next time. We have Kevin James coming up, Paula Poundstone, and so many other ones. A couple of these, of course, as discussed before, not everybody on the list has a comedy special, and certainly not a comedy special that's available on YouTube. So sometimes we do have to skip some people, unfortunate as it may be. But one day I do want to take everybody that we've skipped and do one big thing and just talk about everybody consecutively back to back. So that's going to be a lot of fun, but let's get through at least the first 50 people before we schedule that kind of thing, because there's going to be a lot of people that we're going to have to talk about. Like, I think Howie Mandel has a comedy special. Bobby Stallion, I'm not sure, actually, if he has a comedy special. He's a good comedian, though. I have seen him do some comedy, so... But that all being said, thank you all so much for joining us today. I do hope you enjoyed it. Always remember, don't do anything I wouldn't do. You should probably stay away from most of the things I would do. And until next time, take care and keep laughing.